Welcome, everybody. Hope all of you are doing well out there. So today we have a special guest, and it's L1X. So just quickly, do you want to introduce yourself? So who are you in the project, and who are you on our special guest panel?
Yeah, thanks, UX Crypto. My name is Machu Rudolph. I am the Chief Operating Officer or COO of Layer One X. So my role predominantly within Layer One X is, well, I suppose anyone in a startup will know you wear multiple hats. So I overlook operations. I also overlook and a part of strategy, a part of marketing. I pretty much have my hands in a lot of things with Layer One X. So I can probably talk to a few different aspects today, which is probably handy for those people that are interested.
Definitely. So just before, if you guys don't know what Layer One X is, I'm going to quickly show you. So it's this is Layer One X on the site, and yeah, it's the world's fastest interoperable blockchain. Okay, and obviously just giving you a little quick scroll down the page, and yeah, so definitely you guys should be paying attention to this and everything that Matthew, everything he is saying. So yeah, definitely be paying attention to this. So yeah, I'll ask you some more questions and we can go through the list I have. So yeah, let's do it. So a bit more about yourself. All right. So where your crypto journey, where did you start, and like where is it now, and how did you get to where you're at? Why did you get
Yeah,
to Layer One X? Yeah.
it's been interesting, and I think maybe most people's journeys, it's been a roller coaster ride.
Mm.
I made the common mistake of investing money and then investing time, which was probably the wrong way around when it comes to that. That was back in 2017 when I first got a taste for
Nice.
crypto. But after investing money and learning the hard way through some of those investments, I started to invest a bit more time. And when I have the kind of nature where if I'm interested in something and I want to educate myself, I'm quite compulsive. I spend a lot of time doing that. So I spent a good amount of time and a lot of hours delving into not just crypto but blockchain and how they relate to each other and the potential that they have on so many industries to have a positive impact. And so from there, my background is business management. So I've owned my own training company in terms of leadership management and sales even. So I basically took some of those skill sets and started talking to a few different projects and working with them and started consulting basically with a few different DeFi projects. And then from there, it kind of evolved into, and it's funny, your journey through crypto, relationships are so important. You meet quite a few different people from a few different industries, like I'm sure you have as well. And you make some really good relationships and doors open. And so about 2 years ago, I was at a presentation for Layer One X by the founder, Kevin Cotino, and just was so excited about what he was talking about in terms of what he was developing, the vision of Layer One X. And straight after that talk, I went straight up to him, made a beeline for him. I said, "What do you need? What kind of help do you need to help get this off the ground and make that vision a reality?" And then we started the conversation from there. And he brought me into the team, and I've been there for over a year and a half now. And it's been such an exciting journey with Layer One X.
Wow, yeah, that's really good. Yeah, it's funny because one of my friends, he's been in crypto since 2013, and he was very early into a lot of projects, and that's
Yeah,
exactly how he got in. Like, so he was at an event, and he was like, "I'm so inspired by this," and then he became like one of the original founders of them, of a load of projects. I'm not going to tell you
yeah,
who he is, but yeah, he's a big guy, but that is exactly
yeah.
how he done it as well. So yeah,
Well, from 2013 to now, he would have, wow, what a journey.
oh yeah, he's yeah.
And it's funny, like you say, there's one relationship that you've made through crypto as well. And I'm sure you've made so many, and you get exposed to all the different ideas and people. It's quite an exciting space.
No, 100%. Yeah. Like, so I don't know if you know my background, but I'm a UX researcher slash designer. But I'm more in Web 2 world. So I've worked for loads of big clients in the Web 2 world. But I'm
Yeah,
applying my strategy into crypto. So I'm breaking it down, all the fundamentals to be able to find projects. And so, yeah, and then that's kind of how we're approaching everything. But I've been in crypto since 2016. So witnessed a lot of the stuff you've probably witnessed of all the craziness. So yeah, it's been a
I
fun
know.
ride.
It's still craziness, but probably not as much craziness as there was, but still a little bit of craziness.
Yeah, of course there
But
is. Yeah.
yeah, very, very, very interesting journey, I'm sure. Yeah.
Definitely. So yeah, so yeah. So what is Layer One X?
Yeah, Layer 1 X is a Layer 1 blockchain, similar to, you know, Bitcoin's a Layer 1, ETH is a Layer 1. And basically, as a Layer 1, we're at infrastructure level for applications to build upon. Now, what makes us really unique at Layer 1 X is built directly into the Layer 1 is a interoperability or cross-chain technology called Xtor, which allows us to actually connect to any chain, EVM, non-EVM, public-private, hybrid, and allowing that chain, once we connect up, that chain then has interoperability, or in a simple form, can communicate directly with other chains that we're connected to.
Okay. Wow, that's good. So is it like a bit like you know, Polkadot has like interoperability? Is it like similar model or different?
Yeah, and it's a really good question, because there's some differences between the Layer 1 X model and, say, the Polkadot model or the Cosmos IBC model. Really, the major problem that we're solving, or one of the major problems we're solving with our solution, is it's not a bridged solution. So it's actually bridgeless.
Okay.
Which is an important distinction, because when you look back at the history, and obviously over the years that we've been in crypto, one of the major exploitation points in crypto has been bridges. And I think almost 40% of all hacks, which equates to, you know, $3 billion or more, have come from bridges. Right. And so by taking that risk out of the market, it does enhance the user experience by making it a safer experience. However, you know, then the kind of evolution from bridges was, the next evolution was like Polkadot, Cosmos. Polkadot operates in a parachain, what they call a parachain system. So if you're a parachain in Polkadot, then you can have interoperability with other parachains within that ecosystem of parachains. Cosmos is kind of similar, where they have IBC, which if a chain enables IBC into their chain, then they can have interoperability, connectivity with other chains that have enabled IBC. And what makes Layer 1 X different is that you don't have to do anything as a chain. You don't have to change your standards, your language. You don't have to enable anything as a chain. You can stay the way you are, and we can just connect directly to you. So I like to use this analogy as, currently blockchain is similar to an environment where, let's say, everyone listening to this, including you and I, all speak a different language, but we're in the same room. So, you know, some of us speak, you know, Italian, some speak English, some speak Chinese, some speak, you know, French. So there's all these different languages in there, which represent the different languages and different standards that blockchains are built on, and no one can understand each other. So that's very similar to the situation we find ourselves in now. What Polkadot's parachain system and Cosmos IBC system is similar. What I suppose how I describe them is that they're saying, how about we all learn the same language? So how about we all learn Chinese, and then we can understand each other, right? So how about everyone becomes a parachain, or everyone enables IBC, and then we can understand each other? That's in our minds and our beliefs, that's not realistic. Not everyone's going to have to go through that process to, quote unquote, learn Chinese just so they can speak to everyone else in the room. So what we do is, when we connect to a chain, it's like we're putting a universal translator in the middle of the room. So you can continue to speak Italian, other people continue to speak English, French, Chinese, whatever language they're speaking natively, and still be understood by every other person in that room. And that's probably one of the fundamental differences between what we deliver and what those other solutions don't deliver. I suppose the differences. Even Chainlink CCIP, which is probably one of the more recent interoperability solutions that are coming out, it's still an EVM connectivity solution, right? So there's still EVM to EVM. They haven't cracked the code of EVM to non-EVM, which is Ethereum virtual machine to non-Ethereum virtual machine, which is like Ethereum connecting directly with Solana, the non-EVM. We can do that. So part of the eight chains that we're already connected to, Ethereum, Solana, Binance, Arbitrum, Optimism, Phantom, AVAX, and Polygon, right? Solana being the non-EVM, and we're currently in the middle of the integration of the Bitcoin network as well.
Wow.
So what happens when we connect to a chain, so already those 8 chains we're connected to, it means that you can transfer assets so tokens, NFTs, but also smart contracts on different chains can now talk to each other. And that's probably an important distinction, whether it's an EVM contract or non-EVM contract. Once smart contracts can talk to each other, you can start to create an environment where users feel like they're on the same chain, but they're actually interacting with different chains. And I think, and you would probably, I mean, you'd probably, be much more of an expert on this than me, but I think part of the barrier to adoption of crypto and blockchain is the user experience.
100%. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and we both know, we've been in the space for so long, that learning curve currently of having to, learn how to crypto, or how to use blockchain it's such a steep learning curve. And I think, a lot of people, when their experience is complicated in the first try, they don't try again. And so if we can somehow create the infrastructure for that experience to be a lot more simple and include that the experience to be a lot safer as well, then I think that goes a long way, or we can play our part anyway, into the mass adoption of crypto and blockchain.
Definitely. It sounds really, really good, man. I really like the analogy of the language, what you said. It's really interesting. As in, one thing I was just to bounce off what you said was like fees and stuff. Obviously, one of the biggest barriers for Ethereum, which is not so good because of the fees when you do transactions. Like, how are you guys approaching that side of things? But transaction
it's also a really good topic as well, because our approach is to deliver a solution that does promote the mass adoption of crypto and blockchain. At the heart of our team and our beliefs is that we're not here to compete, we're here to unite. So we might not have all the best solutions on our chain, but what we do have is we have the gate or the access path, the pathway for a user to access that solution, whether it's on us or whether it's on a chain that we're connected to, which we feel that is really important. And so, but in terms of fees, and you hit the nail on the head, I mean, Ethereum, I think the most I've paid for an Ethereum transaction is like $100 or more, and it's just, you know what I mean? It's just not realistic, for so many use cases, it just takes them out of the equation because cost of transaction is too high. So what we do on our chain specifically is we cap the transaction amount at 1 cent. So no matter how many users are operating on the system, the transactions at the native level directly on our blockchain will never exceed 1 cent at the native level.
Wow, that's really good.
You might have, and you might have applications that have their own service fees associated with that. Sometimes they do, like DEX, like PancakeSwap will have its fee, and Uniswap will have its fee, and all these things. But at our native level, we only charge 1 cent on the native blockchain, and I think that's a really important feature of helping people, more use cases want to adopt blockchain.
Definitely. No, I totally agree. It's really good. It's very surprising as well. We'll move on to the next question now as well. So, but I think you've kind of answered some of this anyway, but what makes Layer 1 X a cut above the rest? But you can elaborate more if you want.
No, thank you. And look, I think one of the unique features that we have, one of the unique things is that we are here to collaborate. We're here to unite, not compete. And I think that automatically puts us in a different perspective than a lot of other layer ones, right? But the reason why we have that is because underneath that we have the technology to connect. And I think from the interoperability perspective, I probably can't overstate the fact that we can connect EVM and non-EVM, because, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this as well, is we believe that, as blockchain progresses, we believe that there will more than likely we're almost certain that there will be a future where multiple chains will need to exist. So it's not just going to be one chain to rule them all, because you might have a chain which is a private chain. So it might be a government created chain, it might be an enterprise that has a private chain, there might be a hybrid chain, there might be a public chain. So we believe that these chains, the future holds multiple chains, I don't know, and I suppose because that's the assumption of interoperability that we make. We make two assumptions: that the future holds, there is a future with multiple chains existing, not just one, and the other assumption we make is that those chains need to communicate with each other.
Yeah.
You know, and is that your thought process as well? I'm always interested to hear.
Yeah, I think so. Like, so I'm doing it from the lay of the land and what I can see, right? So just from all the different chains out there, like, so we've got a lot of narratives, right? We've got AI, which is going to have their own chains. We've got gaming have their own chains, and then they're going to have to obviously link in, like you mentioned, governments as well. So you might look at certain coins like maybe ADA or something, or trying to go for the government play, right? Or HBAR or something, right? So then they're going to all need to link together, right? And another thing is obviously security, so decentralization, all that. So my thing is with Web 2, the problem with Web 2 and like not being, or things being centralized, is that, you know, they're not as secure, and hence why you mentioned there's a lot of hacks and all this other stuff, right? Anything goes centralized, that's kind of the issue there. So this is where I think decentralized, like, well, technology is the future, and everything should potentially go that way. And it would more be about, okay, so everything can talk to each other, but what security measures are there to be like, okay, this can't be seen? So for example, if governments are doing voting systems, right, obviously there needs to be like not being shared with certain things in gaming communities, right? So there needs to be like some barriers of security. But I do think that, they should all be able to talk to each other, and it should be decentralized, but there shouldn't be a centralized entity what sees everything. For example, we see what governments do with your data and when they have the power. And I think that's the biggest issue. Like we basically are like, as humans, we will self-destruct if we allow ourselves to. So I feel like in a way we need to kind of put that into a decentralized system, and then not let us have power.
You know what, I 100% agree. I think you've hit the nail on the head. If we can, let's go down a bit of a rabbit hole, right? So what also makes Layer 1 X a cut above the rest is what you can do with the interoperability. So the fact that we can connect EVM, non-EVM, public-private hybrid has this ecosystem. Now, one thing with the interoperability that we're also building out, which will be of interest to you, is a digital identity, an interoperable digital identity, which is part of also it's kind of reflected in the partnership that we've just recently announced as well. But what we're looking at doing, and we've already started building this out, is the ability for the user to own their data in an encrypted environment, and then have the control over who sees it, when they see it, what they see, and how it's used. And like, to give you an example, so the 5 biggest companies that make the most money out of user data currently make collectively $750 million in revenue a year off user data. That's just the 5. So this is a trillions of dollar industry that these companies are making money off your data, my data, and we're not, right? And how are they even securing this data? And so what we're doing, what we're building now, and we're releasing this fairly soon, is the ability for users to actually pull in Web 2 data onto the blockchain and encrypt it under their own permission. And so what it means is that you'll be able to pull in your Facebook data, pull in your Instagram data, pull in your LinkedIn data of multiple different applications, to pull that data in and house that in one place, which is encrypted under your lock and key. Now, once you have that data, we're building out systems and these features which will allow you to then choose who has access to that data. So it may be your doctor, it may be your friend, it may be a financial transaction. So, but what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to select which data points you share and which data points you do not share. And to go beyond that, you'll also be able to revoke access. So once you've shared data, you'll be able to revoke the access back from who you shared that data with. And then the third level, which we're introducing, is being able to verify but not reveal data, which I think is really important. And so I'll give you like a use case for that. So let's say there is an application, an entity, something that wants to prove that you're over 18. Now, the system that we have will allow you to verify that you're over 18 without revealing your date of birth. Okay. And so It's a big build, and there's going to be more than one particular partnership that we will work with to build this out. But we have started already, and what I think is really exciting, two things. One, once you own your data and you control your data, you can also control the monetization of that data.
Oh wow, that's good.
And so building a marketplace where advertisers can speak directly to users, if the user wants that advertiser to speak to them. So they still have to allow access for the communication, but if they do allow access, then we're going to set up a system where the lion's share of that fee that the advertiser has paid goes directly to the user. And I really, as we build out, it has the potential to be the richest data source in the world on you personally, and you will be the owner of it. Now, where interoperability comes into play is that when you create an identity on Layer 1X, that identity is compatible across every other chain we're connected to. So I'll give you kind of maybe the current state of play that people might be able to relate to now. So let's say you've got a wallet on Ethereum and you've got assets in that wallet. Now, if you want to buy some assets on Solana, you can't use MetaMask because it's not Solana compatible. So you're going to have to maybe get I think Phantom's probably the most popular wallet on Solana. You get a Phantom wallet, and then you can start to purchase and hold assets in that wallet. It's because those two chains are currently incompatible, and there is no solution connecting them. Our interoperability allows that identification of one wallet that has compatibility across all chains that we're connected to. Solana, Ethereum, as we add more chains, every chain we connect to, we can connect to any chain, that wallet will be compatible. Now, what you hold in that wallet, you can also transfer with you. So assets, so NFTs, tokens, but also data. Now, data is probably the most valuable asset as people start to understand the power of data ownership and control, is that you will start to now move. Now, let me give you maybe some examples here. Let's say you've got a KYC. So basically, you've got to go through hold the phone up and with the driver's license, all these sort of things. Now, if you can house your KYC data, so your documentation for KYC in an encrypted environment in a wallet or an account that is compatible across multiple chains, it means then the verification, the KYC process becomes a lot more simpler for you, where you can verify certain documents without revealing them, and you can start to pass KYC and not have to change wallets and do it multiple times. That's just one of thousands of examples where digital identity and interoperability really work hand in hand.
Definitely. So because you mentioned that, I've moved one of the questions up. So it's this one right here. How are you approaching the blockchain trilemma? Just because obviously from my perspective, it sounds really good. And I think what you're trying to do is really like what the user experience, you're focusing on that, right? Rather than, in a way, some chains are greedy, right? They want you to stay on theirs. So I think this is really good. But then my question is security. So if I was going to put KYC, all of that on the chain, I would care most about this question. So how do you approach this?
And I think that's an important perspective, because if you have a chain that allows other chains to be connected, then you pretty much have a super highway, right? And a lot of assets will flow through that highway. So what's securing those assets as they flow through? And so there's a few different things. And maybe if I can take a step back in terms of the blockchain trilemma, traditionally the blockchain trilemma talks about decentralization, it talks about security, it talks about scalability. And we kind of call it the quadrilemma, where we add an interoperability there as well. But how we address those things, and we'll start with security. So within the consensus mechanism, for example, there are a few different things we do in the consensus mechanism that adds to security, but it also adds to scalability, which is quite interesting, those two factors. So within our consensus mechanism, when transactions are validated before they go onto the block, we use a consensus mechanism that is a hybrid. So it's proof of stake, like Ethereum now is migrated to proof of stake, where you have your full nodes. But we also, and this might be covering maybe something else you're going to ask me later on, but We also enable the use of mobile-enabled devices to also play a role in validation. Now, why does that matter? Because the transaction process from the security point of view, meaning from the removing the single point of failure of exploit point of view, is that when a transaction comes through, it's split into 4 different pieces, 4 separate components. Each component is then delivered to a randomly selected cluster of mobile-enabled validators. Now, when it goes to those randomly selected cluster, because we're allowing mobile phones to become validators, tens of thousands of validators, potentially right at the beginning, moving to hundreds of thousands, moving to millions of validators, decentralizing the system and taking away that single point of failure or exploitation, right? So when the transaction comes into a randomly selected cluster, then a randomly selected leader is then tasked with picking a randomly selected full node to then validate the information using homomorphic encryption, which is something that we use, which allows data to be encrypted and updated or verified without being revealed.
Okay.
So it means that data can be verified and validated without having to reveal the data to the other party. And so once the leader comes back with validation, and then the remaining cluster group takes that piece, that 1/4 of transaction information, finds its own randomly selected validator, comes back and full node comes back in. If we get more than 51% consensus within that particular cluster, then that piece of the transaction moves to the block creator. And if we get consensus over the four pieces, then they all move to the block creator, and then the block is created. So within the consensus mechanism, just the randomization, the separation of the transaction information and the distribution of validation helps with the security of that. Now, also we employ a form of AI, which is a machine learning algorithm called HTM, Hierarchical Temporal Memory, HTM. What it does, it uses a machine learning algorithm it almost acts like a sheriff within the consensus mechanism, because it allows the system to spot bad acting full nodes before they do damage. So it's a pattern recognition system based on AI that allows that to happen as well. So it's constantly scanning and securing as a sheriff the ecosystem, making sure that there's no bad acting nodes that are causing damage or exploitation to the system. Beyond that, so let's look at the interoperability piece. So with a bridge, a lot of bridges you have to hand custody over to the bridge itself. So you have to hand custody over your assets to the bridge, and then they're bridged over. With us, there's no need for the user to hand custody. In fact, the user themselves maintains custody over the assets throughout the entire transaction. Now, let's say a point of execution fails on that transaction. We automatically have a revert transaction option, which it will revert back to the source point, and then the transaction will fail, and the assets will be in the wallet of the user. So they will never lose custody of that transaction, which I think is a really important point. You're not having to. It's a trustless system. You're not having to rely on a third party to manage those assets for your hand custody, not your keys, not your crypto sort of situation, which is another thing that we do, which adds validation to the cross-chain transaction, is that currently with the bridge scenario, you have a transaction that happens on the source chain. So I want to send USDC cross-chain, happens on the source chain, and then something turns up on the destination chain, which you hope is the transaction that you initiated on the source chain. There's no actual verification that transaction on source and that transaction on destination are the same transaction. So there's no actual kind of mapping of that. So what we do is we actually validate on our own chain, we validate the source transaction, and then we validate the destination transaction and form a transaction ID we call a UUID, Universal Unique Identifier ID, which has 4 transactions: the source transaction, the validation of that on our chain, the destination transaction, and then the validation on that chain. So now there's a mapping and transparency, a traceability of that is the same transaction that occurred on source that happened on destination as well. And then, I mean, this, and then obviously the use of homomorphic encryption comes into the digital identity, where the reveal, verify but not reveal, allows us to do that as well. So multiple different levels of security, and we'll continue to work on security as well. We will never stop from the security level, because if anyone out there tells you that they've got a 100% secure system, they're lying, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so nothing is 100% impenetrable. So there's always got to be a focus on security. But I believe from what we're starting with, we're really happy with the security of the system straight from the get-go.
Oh, that's really good. So in terms of the speed side of things, like where is it lying right now? And then obviously, like you're saying, there's development happening. So where are you kind of aiming to be with that?
Yeah. So and with the speed itself, we've already tested at 100,000 transactions per second. Now, and there's a few things allowing that to happen. Firstly, the distribution of workload between the full nodes and the mobile validators actually enhances the speed, because the workload is distributed and can happen at multiple times on multiple different levels in multiple different areas. But another thing that we've introduced is the ability for us to tap into a technology called eBPF, Extended Berkeley Packet Filtering. So what mainly, and let's talk about WebKit Gaming. WebKit Gaming is built using WebAssembly, so basically Solidity. WebAssembly can't access the system resources or the CPU, the computer resources, right? So it's limited, and that's why sometimes you'll see these kind of below-grade graphics on WebKit games and speed performance. What we've been able to do, and we have not found any other team that's been able to do that. So I believe in our mind, we are the first to crack this code, is we've managed to get the WebAssembly recompiled into eBPF. Now, eBPF can access the system resources, meaning from a desktop perspective, initially, that WebKit games will be able to tap into 10 to 20x times the performance, but also the graphics cards as well of the system of the system resources. So, which is, I think, is really interesting in terms of speed. Now, just to kind of preface this for everybody, when you're looking at speed testing, the true test of speed is when you're out and you're out there in the wild. You've got multiple full nodes operating, which we will have in about 4 weeks' time, and that's going to be the true test of speed. So, you might see people that are in beta version claiming, certain amount of thousands of transactions per second. That's great. But when you actually get out there, and I'm sure Solana would have claimed, hundreds of thousands of transactions, but when they got out into the wild, it's not the case, right? Yeah. And so with us, we feel that we're confident that we're starting with an extremely good base, and we've got an extremely good base to build upon that. And once we, which is at the end of this month, once we have TGE, we're out there, we've got all the full nodes, and we'll continue to add the full nodes through a decentralized ownership. That will be the true test of speed. But we're pretty excited about what we think that this chain can do in terms of speed.
Definitely. So just to obviously talk a little bit about decentralization. So obviously a proof of stake model. So just from my experiences of like staking, so my incentive is obviously to get a percentage or the yield or something. So what would it be the incentive for people to basically stake with Layer One X?
Yeah, really good question. So basically the transaction fees that are produced, now those transaction fees are more than just what your normal Layer 1 would produce, because we're not only transacting on the native chain, we're transacting cross-chain as well. So every time we connect a chain, then it amplifies all the transactions going through us, because every time a transaction goes cross-chain, it's coming through our system. And so with the transaction fees, how we've distributed those transaction fees in 3 different components. So the first component is 50% of all transaction fees will go to the full nodes. So those delegated stakers staking on the full nodes, And there's no auction process in the transactions, meaning that, let's say you've got more, because what we do is we actually, there's an algorithm that distributes the staking to the nodes or to where the system requires the most staking itself. So you could be, it's a dynamic staking location basically. And so we don't actually reward any full node operators that have more staking on them. It's still a random process. So I think it's really important to note, because it also helps us keep the cost down as well. But 50% of all transactions actually go, transaction fees are distributed to the full nodes. 25% of the transaction fees are distributed to the mobile validators. So if we're bringing out our own X wallet, if you've got the X wallet on your mobile, you're automatically part of the validation pool. It only takes up 10 bytes on your phone. And randomly you could be selected and rewarded with our X coin just by having the wallet on your phone, which I think is pretty cool. It's almost like a digital airdrop. And then the remaining 25% of the transaction fees, they actually go to the foundation. Now, they're either going to be burned or locked, or they will be reinvested back into the growth of the ecosystem. So there is a kind of burning and locking mechanism within there to reduce the circulating supply as well. But the rewards basically are this: staking on the full nodes with your traditional proof of stake gets you rewards in the transaction fees. The transaction fees are not just limited to the native chain, because we're also processing cross-chain transactions. Now, out of the 8 chains that we're already connected to, these chains hold the 80% of TVL across all chains and the majority of users across those chains. So and when we look at the amount of cross-chain transactions happening between those chains already, it's somewhere around I think it was last year, it was like 750 million transactions, or maybe it might have been 100 million transactions happened just between those chains.
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy. It's mad. Yeah, so I suppose it brings me on to the next question, which is to do with partnerships. So yeah, you did mention that you've got some new up and coming partnerships. So I'd love to hear about those and maybe existing ones, and to why you've chosen to pick them as well.
Yeah, so I'll talk about 2 initially that we've already formed, one in gaming and one in digital identity. So with the gaming partnership, we formed a partnership with a studio called Digger Labs. They're Turkish based. Actually, we've got a really good reach into Turkey. It's amazing. The Turkish community has over 52% of all Turkish citizens have either owned or own crypto. I mean, that's pretty phenomenal when you look at that stat. But what we're working with them is they've got a few different levels. So Digger Labs is the overarching entity, and below that you've got Digger, Digard, which will eventually form the launchpad, or a gaming launchpad option on Layer One X. And also you've got Elderroom, which is one of their main game at the moment, but they've got about 4 games that they'll be building and launching on us. They're actually live already on BSC chain. But what we're developing with them is, initially we're going to be developing the Digger Arcade, where it'll be your hyper casual games that you'll be able to play. And as we've built that out, they'll be working in the background to release some of the larger games that they want to put on, say Elder Rune. They'll be bringing on their larger games onto the system as well. Now, one thing that they're going to be able to showcase is the interoperability, and this is really kind of cool. There's games at the moment, and probably all projects at the moment, unfortunately have to make a choice sometimes. They go, do I go cheap and fast, or do I go with the users and the capital R? So am I going Ethereum, or do I have to go somewhere else? Because, and unfortunately they're currently having to make that choice. Now, if we can take that choice out of the equation and say, why don't you just have it all? Because you can connect to multiple different chains. So what these guys will be able to showcase is the ability, now you can mint NFTs on any chain we're connected to, and you can do one of 2 things with those NFTs. You can port the NFT onto Layer One X. In fact, you can port the NFT onto any chain we're connected to. So you want to take an NFT from Solana to Ethereum, go for it. From BSC to Arbitrum, go for it. Now, another cool thing is that you don't even need to port the NFT to use that game. So let's take a scenario that just uses that interoperability and doesn't even it's not even built on Layer 1 X. But if it's built on Layer 1 X, it's going to be a cheaper option for projects to be able to offer to the users. But let's say you've got a game on Polygon, and Polygon wants to attract users across multiple other chains. Right? They don't want to be siloed into the capital and the users just on Polygon. So they mint NFTs on Binance Smart Chain. They mint NFTs on Solana. They mint NFTs on Ethereum, for example. Why would you mint NFTs on Ethereum? I don't know, because it costs you a fortune. But let's say they mint these NFTs on other chains. Now, what a user will be able to do is they'll be able to keep their NFT on Binance Smart Chain in their wallet, come into the Polygon game, and then Polygon, because smart contracts can talk to each other with our technology, a smart contract can verify the ownership of that NFT on Binance Smart Chain and now unlock that NFT in the game as the user enters the game. So it could be unlocking a weapon, a tool, or whatever that is. But now you no longer need to port the NFT to use it in the game. You can keep it on the home chain and just verify the ownership. So these are some cool things that the interoperability allows from the gaming user experience, and that's what Digger Labs will be able to showcase, that and a few other things in terms of the interoperability and the unique features that it delivers to gaming.
Just on that one, that's quite interesting actually. Yeah. So, for example, let's say your NFT was like a character or something like that in the game, and then it was on another chain, and then you go into, for example, is it Elder? One of the games I've seen here. Yeah. So, would you be able to bring that same character in from another game into this game, or would it not?
Yeah, as long as the game allowed that character to, it was part of that game, So what you'll require is you'll require collaboration between projects or collaboration cross-chain, but absolutely. So you might have a collaboration between two games on two different chains that they want to do a collaborative NFT mint. So what we're going to do is we're going to collaborate. We can combine communities. We're going to mint these NFTs that are usable in both games, even though those games are on different chains. You can absolutely do that. Which once again opens up the users and the capital access to games out there, and kind of goes with that ethos of we're here to unite, not compete, right? We want to create collaboration cross chain, and help these kind of these projects work together and grow at the same time.
Definitely sounds really, really cool actually. Yeah. Especially as a designer, like in my what I do in the day to day.
Oh yeah.
It's just like that's really cool.
You would have it would be your dream playground for that. And look, just so you know as well, we are developing some quick start development docs as well. So it's in the works at the moment where we want to try and make the build experience as simple as possible, so you can kind of make those dreams a reality without having too much developer background. So that's something we're already working on, and it's a work in progress for us to kind of take out the complexity of building, so you can tap into that technology and build what you want. The second partnership that we've got is with another chain called OmChain. Now, it's quite interesting. Their specific focus is digital identity, OmChain. Now, these guys are also Turkish-based. Now, initially, their client is the Turkish government, but because they're a provider. Yeah. Now this is quite, and that's the first of one of many clients, and this is a really great use case for our partnership to show what the interoperability and the digital identity can do. So OnChain is a provider to the Turkish government. Now, what they will be doing is they'll be providing a digital identity solution built on the blockchain. So currently there's already 4 million users within Turkey that use the current infrastructure, the current digital identity Web 2 solution. So OnChain, in collaboration with us, we're building out that capability. So now it would be blockchain based. Once that takes place, the Turkish government have projected 15 million in 2024 coming onto that solution. Now, this is in terms, and we're really quite proud of this, because this partnership shows that we're also in collaboration with OnChain playing our part in terms of the mass adoption of Web 2 users onto Web 3, right, onto blockchain.
Yeah.
Now, why OnChain likes what we're doing is, one, because obviously we've also got our digital identities features that they can tap into as well, but they are very very capable blockchain. Now, this is an example of a proof of authority blockchain. So this is a private setup blockchain, and this what one other reason that makes me believe that the future is multiple chains.
Yeah.
So this is because the government. Why would the government want to build a public chain where there's certain things that they will want to be permissioned? However, this chain can tap into our interoperability, and now by on-chain linking to Layer 1X, it now gives their users access to other crypto and blockchain services, not just the single use case that on-chain provides, which is the digital identity. I think that's also an example of what happens with chains in the future. They become specialists on a particular service or use case that they're providing, on-chain being digital identity. And so what that partnership allows 4 million and then eventually 15 million users to come on to Layer 1X and start interacting with the gaming, with the DeFi, with the digital identity interoperability, with the NFT marketplace. So for us to have on-chain as one partnership around digital identity, and we're in talks with other digital identity partners, that really is a massive win for the amount of users coming onto Layer 1X.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds really, really good, actually. Like, very impressive. You're going to get all them users as well coming through, and the government.
Yes.
That's amazing. Yeah, really good.
It's a great use case, right? Because it gives governments don't mess around with any technology. They do their due diligence. They make sure that that the solution is sound, right? And security is at the front of their mind. So it just gives validation to the technology that a government is willing to use it. I think that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with Turkey, it's quite interesting because obviously Turkey isn't in the EU, right? And then they've kind of been left in a place where they're kind of in the middle of everyone, like as a country.
Yeah.
So they're kind of open to look at solutions, which they could be an early adopter to a lot of things. I don't know why they weren't allowed in the EU, but that's all political reasons, right? But yeah, they're in a good place, I would say, like to where a lot of other countries are stuck to certain rules, right? Which is pretty interesting.
Definitely. So they're willing to work, they're willing to kind of use the technology and see what it can develop, which is great for us because it provides a really great use case. And on-chain and our partnership focus will be to connect other countries up. So, that idea, and even if it isn't an on-chain solution where maybe we've got a partner that's got a digital identity solution in another country, let's say in South Africa, for example, just as another example, our interoperability allows that ID that on-chain has that can get someone onto a bus in Istanbul could be the same ID that allows someone to board a ferry in Cape Town.
Wow.
Because it's interoperable, and it could be the same ID that allows someone to verify and pay for a meal in London. So this is where the power of digital identity and interoperability really come into play, where that ID can move as you move across chains and across countries.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I don't know, this is just giving me an idea, right? But you see with like Apple Wallet, and obviously you have an Android as well, and you have like tickets and all that type of stuff. So would there be a case where, for example, you scan a QR code or something like that on your wallet, and that would be able to get you on the bus as well as the ferry, like you mentioned? Would it be something like that? Would that be the end output?
Yeah, so basically, it will be. It'll be some form like that, because the cool thing as well is that because you can verify, so in the encrypted environment, you'll have the level of verification will be so deep because you can verify with official documents. You can verify also to enrich the kind of level of security and verification. You can add your social handles. You can add your personal relationships, who you're connected to. All these different things to really form quite a deep and rich verification and secure verification structure. So you can, because it's so sound in its verification, yes, you can use it to get into a club in Stockholm, or you can use it to access to pay for like a movie in Sydney. So yes, like whether it's a QR code or some sort of scanning that's there. Whatever form that takes on, it will access the data that you've collected and encrypted that is compatible across any chain.
Wow, that's really cool. Sounds really good. Yeah. So yeah, thanks for sharing about all of the partnerships. So the next question is going to be a bit more techie. So it's the question of Rust. So you're built on Rust. So why did you decide to choose that language?
Yeah, so not being a developer myself, but I can tell you from the discussions that we had early on with Kevin Cotino, our founder, and the development team, is that Rust, compared to Solidity, Rust offers improvements in security and improvements in performance. And so, without going into the technicalities of how that happens, I just know that the decision was made to use Rust because of security and because of performance that it gives to the chain. And I suppose, mate, Solana's built on Rust. They've got a pretty decent performance when they're not breaking down, but they haven't broke down in a while. So they're built on Rust. So those are pretty much the two major reasons why we choose to build on Rust. Now, what's quite interesting though, we actually built our virtual machine from the ground up. So in doing so, we actually also made that virtual machine EVM compatible. So it can, if you can imagine, we've got a virtual machine with two different verticals. We've got the L1X virtual machine, which is Rust-based, which interacts with Rust smart contracts. And then we've got the L1X VM EVM, which actually still can interact with Solidity contracts. So if you're let's say an EVM project built on an EVM chain, Binance or Ethereum or AVAX, you can actually migrate over to our Layer 1X without too much hassle and now be a native L1X chain, still using Solidity code and interacting with our virtual machine.
Oh, wow.
So we cover both.
That's cool. That's really good. Yeah, that's good to know for these people, because that's the problem, isn't it, with people who learn a language and then they're like, they might want to go off another one. So yeah, it's very good. Yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
Yeah, wicked. Okay, so the other techie question as well, but you might be able to answer it, is so on Layer 1X, I was just reading on your site, so it says protected by mobile proof of participation. So like, how does that work?
Yeah, no, great question. So what makes us quite unique in our consensus mechanism, which I mentioned before, is that we enable the use of mobile validators. So meaning that if you've got a L1X account on your mobile phone, you automatically become part of the validator pool, and you can be randomly selected and thus rewarded for validating transactions.
Okay.
So the proof of participation means that you are, by having an account on Layer 1X, you prove that you are a participant on the network, and thus can be part of the validation and security of the network. Now, how we expand that, and we will expand this into the future, is we will allow devices, so it won't just be mobile phones, it could be your smart fridge, it could be your smart watch, it could be IoT devices, eventually, that will be part of this validator pool. So when you think about decentralization, and once we start to introduce those devices, we're talking billions of validators to decentralize the network. And I think that would be the envy of any chain, to be able to say that they have that many validators decentralizing their network.
So on that note, actually, so imagine I'm LG, right? So LG is like an enterprise. Do you have like two different ways of doing this? Is there like an enterprise B2B version? Like, so for example, if they were to do this with you, and then they could obviously gain from having all these devices linked into Layer 1X, or obviously me as just a person with a mobile phone, as in, is there a different like model for that, or is it the same model?
Yeah, it will be and this is where, I think what you've touched on there is a really, really good question to go into, right? Because this is where the infrastructure, we have to be conscious of centralization. And the I suppose the ownership of a large percentage of mobile validator nodes. And so initially, that's why we're focusing on individual users with mobiles, because the distribution of that is decentralized. Continuing our focus through individual users on smartwatches, and this is not ready yet in terms of the smartwatch and fridge and those devices, but that will be coming as we build out. But we're in no rush, because we want to ensure the decentralization continues. So having that as at an individual level is really important, because let's say you give it to an LG's got millions of devices, and so you give that to LG, and LG owns the validator, because they have put that in there, and then now they start to own a large percentage. That's where we have to be. We've got to tread in a fashion where it allows us to ensure that the system maintains decentralization.
Yeah, that sounds
cool. What helps that as well is the random selection. So it's still the random selection, the breaking down of the transaction, the involvement of the full node, because the full node needs to be a random selection as well. So the process still mitigates that risk, but why even take the risk? So as we progress, as we build out the roadmap, decentralization will also be at the forefront, along with security, scalability, and interoperability.
Cool. Yeah, I really like that idea. That's really cool. Yeah, definitely. It seems to cover a lot of bases, which is, in crypto, there's loads of different narratives, right? So at the moment, yeah, it's quite exciting the stuff we're talking about. So
it is. It really is exciting. And, it's a journey, right? And we've started on the journey. We're really happy with where we've got to at this stage. And we're confident in terms of where we're going as well, because we can see it. We believe, we know the tech works. We believe in the tech. The core is the interoperability. We know we've got, a structure which allows us for the scalability, the decentralization and the speed. And now it's just about continuous iteration, development, upgrade, evolution of that tech.
Definitely. So talking about that, the next question is, what dApps are you building on and or coming out? I've only covered a little bit, but is there any other ones you could tell us about?
Yes, for sure. So what you'll see in the coming months will be some quite unique applications. So I think we've covered the gaming space with Digo Arcade and their games. We've also got other partnerships that will be building us in terms of gaming. So gaming is quite well covered. And I think once we start to get these, and why we're kind of working quite closely with Digo is because we feel that if we understand the tech better than anybody. So if we can make sure that Digo is tapping into every piece of the advantage that this tech gives, then it's a great showcase and use case for other games to see what's possible, to then tap into the technology, whether they're building directly on Layer 1 X or they want to tap into our interoperability solution. From the DeFi perspective, what's going to be quite interesting is we have the interoperability. Now, what we're doing now and who we're talking to now is DEX aggregators, because in the DeFi space, this will become quite interesting. So if you've got interoperability between any chain and you've got a DEX aggregator that you can connect to that on each chain, what you have then is a scenario where you have any token to any token swap on any chain we're connected to, meaning that I could take the shittest shitcoin and then swap that for BNB. And I could take that shitcoin could be on Arbitrum and I could swap it for BNB, or vice versa. I could take, some other kind of obscure small cap coin on AVAX and swap it for another coin on Solana. And that's what's coming in the next 3-month period. DEX aggregator connecting to the interoperability, but also we've got a DEX, L1 DEX, that's building on us as well, that will be released this month. Now these guys, this is really interesting what they're doing, and one showcase of the interoperability is showcased in the liquidity. So currently when we talk to a few projects that are multi-chain, meaning that they have a version of their project on more than one chain. So they might be on Polygon, AVAX, BSC. One of the restrictions that they have at the moment is that they've got to have liquidity on each of those chains. So we've talked to a project that has $3 million of liquidity, but it's really $1 million of liquidity over 3 chains. Now, the deeper the liquidity, the lower the price impact, the better the efficiency of the trading of that token. So ideally, what they would want to do is that they would want to consolidate that liquidity into one big pool of 3 million. What our technology allows, because the smart contracts can talk to each other, it allows projects to take their liquidity across multiple chains, put it onto L1X in one big pool, and now that liquidity serves every chain we're connected to.
Oh, wow.
So, for example, we were talking to a project that was on those 3 chains I mentioned. We were like, well, why don't you just bring the liquidity, talk to the L1 DEX guys, bring the liquidity onto Layer 1X, and now you're not just serving 3 chains, you're serving 8 chains, and you've got 3 million in one liquidity pool. And then when you think about even a project that's not on multiple chains, just on one chain, just bring it onto Layer 1X, and now that liquidity can still service multiple chains as well, not just the chain that you're on. And so the L1 DEX is building a balancer pool, multiple different balancer pools that takes in ETH, BNB, Arbitrum, Optimism, Solana to form one main balancer pool or multiple smaller balancer pools, whether they be stable coins or native coins, to create these deep pools for the cross-chain swaps. Because liquidity is required. If I'm going to swap BNB with native Solana, you need liquidity there. You need to be able to put your BNB into a liquidity pool and pull out your Solana from the Solana pool, liquidity pool. So you have 2 options. You can have single staking on the chains that you're interacting with, that the DEX will provide single staking, or one deep balancer pool scenario where it can tap in. You can take that BNB, put it into the balancer pool, pull out the Solana on the other side of Solana, and then it just rebalances itself. So that's quite cool. That's also building on us.
Yeah, so in my Discord, actually, we have been talking about this recently, about like obviously the heights of the bull market, liquidity becomes an issue when you've got like lower cap coins. So it's very interesting to be able to do that. So for example, not saying this is accurate, but let's say 2025 bull market's fully kicked in, right? Would you guys be able to be the solution that we could go to potentially, if we wanted to get out of our bags or just exchange them for certain things, would you be the right place to go?
Ultimately, the technology that we have allows us to be almost the liquidity nexus across all blockchains, where you can consolidate your liquidity onto our chain, and that liquidity can service any chain we're connected to. So if and obviously we're the infrastructure layer, so we rely on applications to tap into that interoperability, that technology to create that. But I mean, it's there, and L1 DEX is the first mover on that to be able to tap into that ability. What we also see as well, which is quite interesting, is that when you combine DEX aggregation with the cross-chain swap, so now you have like a widget, like a swap widget that you'll see on Pancake, you see that on Uniswap, and you have the swap widget. Now, this swap widget, you'll be able to take that widget and you'll be able to put it on any website because it'll be an iframe. Now, when we introduce fiat into that, can you imagine a project taking that widget, putting it on their website, having the DEX aggregator and the cross-chain swaps and the fiat option, and now that project, you can purchase that particular project's token directly from their website, and you can purchase that with any token on any chain that we're connected to. And so now, bang, it just gives access and exposure of every particular project's token, and the user's not leaving their site to do that, to buy it.
That sounds good.
And so absolute, to answer your question, that has the potential, yes, to be the liquidity nexus. Yep.
Nice, man. No, that sounds good. It sounds good. So I cut you. Sorry, you were going to say something else as well.
Oh, I was just going to maybe have one in the NFT space, one use case that we're building out as well, which might be interesting to those, either whether you're dabbling in kind of NFTs for the art, or you're doing it for the utility, whatever that is. So currently, the technology allows this too, which is quite interesting. We'll be building on us in the next few months will be an NFT marketplace. Now, what makes this NFT marketplace unique is that if you have an NFT from any of the chains we're connected to in your wallet, you'll be able to go onto this marketplace, place that NFT for sale in the L1X NFT marketplace, and it will give you also options of other NFT marketplaces on other chains you would also like to place that NFT at the same time. Okay. And so now I can place an NFT on L1X, I can place it on OpenSea, Magic Eden, Blur.io, all at the same time. And now the access to buyers for that NFT is exponential, right? And so what happens is, let's say it gets sold on one of those other OpenSea. So what happens is the smart contract logic talks to all the other NFTs, removes them from the marketplaces and burns them, hands the ownership over to the new purchaser, and it's all done through smart contract without the user having to do anything.
Wow.
And so that's another use case of the technology that's coming out in the next 3 months that people will be able to use directly on Layer One X.
Wow, that's really good, really good. Yeah, it sounds like you're solving a lot of issues which are in the space. It's absolutely amazing.
Well, the interoperability really it's that technology that really allows these things to happen.
Question for you. So it wasn't on the list, right? But you mentioned in the beginning about Bitcoin interoperability, and it's not out yet, you said. But what's the plan with that? As in, because that's quite interesting to me. As in,
so by connecting the Bitcoin network, they have they're not the smart contract infrastructure like Ethereum, right? They've got very limited functions with that. However, one thing that Bitcoin holders want to do is they want to secure that Bitcoin as much as they can, right? They don't want to move that Bitcoin if they don't have to. So one of the things that interoperability will allow is a smart contract agreement where the Bitcoin holder can still maintain their Bitcoin on the Bitcoin network, use that as collateral on any other chain, because the verification of that holding will go cross chain. So if I want to lend someone I want to lend you on BSC and use your Bitcoin as collateral, what you'll be able to do is jump onto my BSC application, verify your ownership of the Bitcoin holdings that you have. We can create a smart contract agreement so you don't have to move it off Bitcoin, and I will lend you those tokens, whether I'm lending you BNB or USDC or whatever that is, for your collateral. So what it now opens up is additional use case for Bitcoin rather than just a buy and hold. Now, I think what our technology will open up is all these different kind of use cases that are for Bitcoin by keeping Bitcoin on Bitcoin, but now these applications can tap into that collateral on any other chain that we're connected to.
Cool. So one question around that is, so just thinking about the demographic, right? So a lot of people store their Bitcoin on hardware wallets, right? So would you need to do like some sort of agreement with hardware wallets to be able to tap into that, or would it be only centralized exchanges or dexes that you could connect to? How would that work?
That's in the roadmap as well. So initially we'll have it won't be with the hardware wallet. It'll just be you'll be either dexes or CXs. But we're funny enough, we're actually, because going back to the digital identity, what we have the opportunity to do now, because of the really rich information that you can collate in an encrypted manner, is to take away the need for a hardware wallet. To create a digital version of a hardware wallet, so you don't have to have this physical piece of equipment that you have to carry around to do that. And so that's one thing our team is working on, is how do we replicate the security of a hardware wallet, but not actually have to have hardware to do that. And that's where the interoperability and the digital identity, all the information and data points to verify you as a user come into play. And once we start to build those out, then we can start to look at hardware wallets that don't require hardware but maintain that security level. Yeah,
no, that's a great answer, to be fair, because I think a hardware wallet thing, it's like, I don't know, we're going backwards a bit, like for security, so I get
and even the user experience of a hardware wallet, like it's I don't know, it's like, okay, so it's like the transition of keyless entry for cars, right? So when I first got a car, I had to use a key to open the car, I had to use a key to turn the car on. Now with my car, I can push a button. I don't have to turn it. Sometimes I don't even have to pull the key out, because my keys are close enough, it'll open the door. I'll push the button to turn the car on. So it's kind of just making that experience a bit more simpler, a bit more seamless, but still maintaining the security, which is important.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing with keyless car entry stuff, especially in the UK. Like it's not very good in the UK. Like this is the thing. Like, if we want to go into that could be another user case for you guys, because car companies haven't solved that, because it's centralized. Like, it's very easy to get past. Like, And then
Oh,
I don't know if you know how it works in that, but what people can do is you can see the VIN number on the car, right? And then people can access that through an app, and then they can turn your keyless car entry back on, and then they can intercept the signal, and then they can just take your car. Like, it happens all the time in the UK. Like, it's really bad.
wow.
Yeah.
Well, well, eventually the interoperability that we're speaking about we're working on interoperability between Web 2 and Web 3 as well. So where at some stage will be the interoperability solution between IoT devices. So now, let's say your car being an IoT device coming up to your garage being an IoT device, your garage will be able to talk to your car to say, I'm 10 meters away, open up.
Yeah.
And so, these kind of things that will happen fairly seamlessly because the interoperability now connects IoT devices.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's really cool. Yeah, definitely. It's getting me excited.
Yeah.
So some of the questions I asked, I think you've kind of said already. So for example, I did say to you gaming on L1X, but I think we've covered this, right? Unless there's more, I don't know, but we can skip that one. We've got where you're looking to take the project in the future. Do you want to answer this, or is you kind of?
Probably one thing that I hadn't mentioned, which is on our roadmap, is actually a decentralized web browser. So we will be building out our own web browser. So currently we have the technology and the protocol level, and we have the interface which we're building out, which is the L1X app. It's currently in beta, and we'll be building that user experience out. So basically, the L1X app will be the front door into the ecosystem. I don't think there's no front door into Ethereum, or there's no front door into AVAX, but this will be a front door into the L1X ecosystem, where it won't just be the L1X ecosystem, it'll eventually evolve to be a front door into the Web3 ecosystem, because we're connected to all these chains. And so what we're doing is we'll be building a decentralized web browser where you'll have Google Chrome, and then you'll have L1X web browser, where you'll be able to build decentralized websites directly on the blockchain. And so what that means is that when, from a security level, you'll be able to, so a website will have an identity, you'll be able to verify the identity of the website, you'll be able to verify content, they'll be able to verify you as a user if required. And so you can start to ask for verification and authenticity when you're interacting with either websites, individuals, other entities, all within this web browser environment. That's probably the ultimate of where we're heading now, into that decentralized that web browser, which will be, domains. For example, look at domain names. Domain names on Layer 1 X are actually interoperable, so they're not just Layer 1 X, like Ethereum is just Ethereum. They're Layer 1 X, they're Ethereum, they're Solana, they're a domain name for every chain that we're connected to. So this is the power, and that's one of the major milestones that we'll be achieving, which is earmarked for 2024.
Oh, cool. So in terms of the domain side of things, so it could display as a Web2 address, say like a .com, but then it would, underneath it could be Layer 1 X, or would it just be .Layer 1 X?
.L1X, yeah.
Okay.
.L1X, and you'll be able to. So currently, you can actually get your own username, and the username will be the tool to unlock all the data. So you'll be able to pull in your data, start to encrypt, control, access, revoke, and then the evolution of that username will be domain names, where you will have our own CMS system. You'll be able to build directly on there, actually, which is coming out fairly soon. Build your own websites. You'll be able to stream from there. You'll be able to sell merchandise from there. You'll be able to take payments, fiat, any token, all these different things that we're really building out an ecosystem which unites all these different applications, whether they're on Layer 1X or maybe they're on another chain.
Well, that sounds really good. Really good. Yeah. So this one, I don't know, we kind of answered it, but if you want to just like do the elevator pitch or whatever you want to do.
I think, one of the things for us is that what do we do better than Layer 1s? We connect other Layer 1s and Layer 2s. We connect other chains better than anyone else. And which is really important, because we believe that the future is a multi-chain existing future. There's not going to be one chain to rule them all, because different entities, government, public, whatever they will have their own requirements. So someone needs to connect them up. We are the only interoperable solution that can currently connect EVM to non-EVM. So that's something that's a main selling point about what we do different than any other layer ones out there.
Oh, definitely. It sounds really good. So, any last words from yourself before we go?
Look, I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity. Like I know we had a time before, and my apologies that
No worries.
I fucked that up. So my sincere apologies for that. But I love talking about blockchain. I love talking about crypto. I love talking about Layer One X, and it's always really nice to be able to talk to someone who's got the same passion and curiosity. I think the questions that you answer are fantastic. I've enjoyed the dialogue as well, and I'm sure your community. I mean, they value what you deliver to them, and I hope that maybe I've delivered something of value to them today.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. After today's chat, I'm a lot more bullish on the project. I mean, yeah, I've been looking at you guys, and we've been talking about you in our chat. So it wasn't when you guys contacted me, I was like, oh, that's interesting. We just spoke about you guys. So yeah, and I think after speaking with you, I'm a lot more bullish on your project. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, and it's a journey, right? The thing that gives us confidence, certain things, we've started off with done well. Certain things we'll need to iterate in terms of, whether that, and that'll always be something that we're conscious to do. We're always looking for feedback on it. Mm-hmm. But the greatest thing about that is that the fundamental technology is there, and that once we start to build more partnerships, and even just the partnerships that they've got, these features that are coming out that I just talked about as well, and there's many more, it will be able to show the user of, okay, this is the new way now we do crypto, we do blockchain. And if we can be part of that narrative, I think that's really cool, right? It's
definitely awesome. Yeah. I think one thing which makes me more excited is I'm quite bullish on like interoperability generally, and I feel like with Bitcoin and obviously like more money coming into it, and the scaling solutions need to be looked at, right? So, and it's just I think that's why I'm quite bullish on you guys now, because I didn't know how much like integration we're doing with interoperability. So after explaining it, I'm like, wow, this is very good. And
let me actually expand on what you just said, because I think you raised a really good point. So let's say the Bitcoin ETF gets approved, right? And I'm pretty sure everyone thinks it'll be approved, hopefully in the next 7 days or at some stage. So imagine a scenario where we've got interoperability with Bitcoin Network and through a trustless bridgeless system, and let's say someone like a BlackRock wants to create their own private chain, right? So all the information is secure, it's transparent. Now what BlackRock can do is they can actually purchase Bitcoin, not have to move it off the Bitcoin network, but verify its ownership, but take transactions on its own private chain to be able to do that. And so the interoperability plays a major role could play a major role in that scenario as well, where we can connect up and make these transactions more secure, a lot more transparent for institutions such as BlackRock to be able to access that Bitcoin.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think this is the thing, like there's a small trend at the moment with interoperability, but I think that's going to be massive. Like as we go into the bull market, I think it's going to be even more important. And it's kind of like with Ethereum, right? There was Ethereum killers for a reason, and the reason was that people was like getting frustrated with the chain, right? And I just more and more things grow, I can just see this narrative becoming bigger and bigger. Like, and we're going to need interoperability with Web 2, right? So, yeah, definitely.
100%. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Yeah, and we're seeing it already. The conversations that we're having, and some of the, I think like Chainlink, for example, they've already started their push on CCIP in terms of interoperability, and that will continue to grow. As we get into the bull, Polkadot Cosmos will come back into that narrative as well. And which gives us real confidence, because we feel that we can be part of that narrative, and as we continue to build out, we have the potential to lead that narrative, which is great.
Definitely, yeah. I suppose it's not a random question, I suppose, but like in terms of where do you guys see yourself in terms of like development side? So we've got like the Cardano fit approach where it's like, oh, we won't release until everything's like perfect, or we've got like I think it's the Solana approach where they iterate on each thing. Like, where do you guys lie in the middle of that? Is it a bit of both?
I think we're probably more towards the Solana approach. Let's get it out and work with it and take the feedback as we go. But only really from the user experience side, not from the security side.
Okay,
So
great.
yeah,
Yeah.
the last thing you want to do is iterate from security.
Mm,
You know, and you want to make sure that you've got the security is there, it's tested. We're already running through our second audit now as we speak, of the system as well, and we'll continue to focus on that. But from the user experience side, that's where we'll have the iterative approach, and we'll put it out there, and we'll get feedback, and we'll grow with the community.
definitely. No, it sounds really good, man. It's been really good, man. I really appreciate all your time, and yeah, definitely wish you luck. When can everyone expect L1X to drop? Is it end of the month? Is
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
TGE actually launches 31st of January, so it's
Oh, no.
coming up really soon. You still have an opportunity if you want to get some L1X coin before the TGE, the public sales open. So, and Discord is probably the best place to go. It's a great, informative community. The mods on there are great. They all do educate. And if you've got any questions, please jump onto that. The Discord, that's the place to be. And they're a really kind of supportive community there as well. But look, I thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I know everyone's time's valuable. Thank you for the time of your community as well, and to listening to what I have to say. And I really appreciate it. I look forward to maybe some future conversations.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, it sounds really good. Yeah, I'm sure if everything goes to plan, we'll be chatting again. Don't worry.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
that's great.
Thank you so much.